Greetings and welcome once again. My name is John Gabriel and this is a new calculus channel. So today I'm going to try a different little exercise. I'm going to show you how I use chatbots, okay, and what they call artificial intelligence in the mainstream. It's not really artificial intelligence because there is no such thing. It's really just advanced automation. So a chatbot, regardless of how impressive it might be, cannot think, cannot reason, and has no awareness whatsoever. Okay. But it is able to come up with some surprising answers. And sometimes it can be annoying, at other times it can be indifferent, etc., etc. So I'm not going to explain how a chatbot works, but in this video, I want to show you how I discuss an article that I wrote. So I'm going to say to Claude, I'm going to tell it, analyze the following PDF listing all the main ideas. Let's see what it does. Okay, so so I think it's made a pretty good summary because it says that, let's make it bigger so you can see it too. It says that it presents a mathematical identity relating the derivative to the difference quotient and a term which represents a difference in slopes, and it allows expressing the definite integral and fundamental theorem of calculus in a new way using the arithmetic mean. And what's the arithmetic mean? This is the arithmetic mean, okay? And it represents the arithmetic mean of all the y-ordinates of the derivative in this interval. And a proof of this is provided in the appendix. It also states that this theorem was discovered by me, which has been wrongly attributed to others. And the overall tone suggests this is a major discovery. It is a major discovery because although it wasn't really published until 2020, it was known many decades before. I just never got a chance to publish it. And there was no internet for a good part of my life. So I'm 62 years old, and the internet hasn't been around that long. So, and of course, no journal would dare touch my material because of all the libel and the lies spread by the mainstream math church of academia about me. So now let's ask Claude to a few questions, and then we'll ask it what it thinks. Okay. So, uh, let's see, do you know of any mainstream source that talks about this identity in any way whatsoever? Let's see what it comes up with. Okay, so I asked it if it knows of any mainstream source, and it says, no, I'm not aware of this mathematical identity being discussed or presented. Some key reasons does not align with the standard calculus. And it says with the established calculus is that the standard derivative does not include an extra term like the slope difference. It doesn't because they didn't know about it, right? So it says this term is not used or defined in mainstream calculus. Of course it isn't. I discovered it. I, John Gabriel, discovered it, and I alone take the credit for all of that. Not anyone else, not Leibniz, not Newton, not Cauchy, not any one of the fucking moron professors that came before me, okay? The fundamental theorem of calculus relates the integral and derivative directly without invoking arithmetic means or this Q term. Actually, I think I've shown you in past videos that the fundamental theorem says this. And So it says this. Those who came before me were just too stupid to realize that it does actually relate um, the integral and derivative with the arithmetic mean. They just didn't know that it was the case. Okay. So in other words, what I'm telling you is that the arithmetic mean is on this side. The arithmetic mean is f prime of c multiplied by b minus a. Okay. Meaning that if you take this part here and you divide it by b minus a, this becomes fc. Okay. So they didn't realize it because they're stupid, and most of them are not even meant to be in math. They have no aptitude for mathematics. I shouldn't say that because anybody can learn mathematics, but the people I've come across with have been invariably been the nastiest, dumbest mathematics professors I've ever known. People like, Gilbert Strang, Michalis Lamvros, that Cypriot idiot who runs the Mathematica.gr site, Zelos Malem, Marcus Gleiber, and the list just goes on and on and on. They're all fucking morons. Sorry, I have to use that language because it really describes what I want to say to the point. And then it says, the derivative is not typically described in terms of the arithmetic mean of tangent line slopes. It's not typically, right? It says its definition only involves the slope of the tangent line itself. Well, that's because they didn't know about the theorem. So how could they relate it? And then it says this geometric interpretation and proof appear to be novel and invented by the author, not a rediscovered secret of calculus. Okay. Actually, this last point here, I'm afraid, is not true. It was a secret of calculus because I revealed it, and I'll show you now when I let's challenge Claude on that, okay? And it says mainstream math literature attributes the foundations to Newton and Leibniz, not John Gable. Okay, so now let's just see what happens here. Let's just challenge Claude on this. Uh, uh, means obviously means that it must have been a secret since no one knew about it before John Gabriel. Let's see what it says. Okay, so as you can see, it's not agreeing with me. It's saying mainstream calculus is. Let's just go back to a statement that I didn't cover in the first response. It says the arguments for its importance and suppression by the mathematical establishment do not hold up to scrutiny. Okay, that can be interpreted in two ways. Um, uh, let's just talk about that one before we come back to this one. Let's back up. Let's back up a little before I discuss your latest response. Uh, what are you claiming that the theorem has no importance? Okay, so it carries on, blah blah blah. I should have said keep your uh, responses short. So I'll say here, uh, uh, can you find anything wrong with the theorem? And please keep your responses to the point and short. Okay, so this is all I wanted to show you, is that it cannot find anything wrong. Uh, can you show me? Can you show me how the theorem works when applied to f of x equals to x squared and h equals to, let's say, 2? Let's see what it does. Okay, so now it seems to have done up till this point here correctly. It says the theorem states that, and so this here would be that value minus qx of 2, and of course qx of 2 is 2, so we would basically have 2x, which is a derivative. So it did everything correctly. Can you see that? I mean, this is just without me having told it anything, it knows how to complete the example. Okay, so this is the AI, the Claude AI from Anthropic, and I've told it not very much of it. So let's go back now to its second response here. So its second response, let's just see, that's the first one, and now this is the second one. It says mathematical breakthroughs usually build on or relate to previous work, but this identity does not seem to connect clearly to existing calculus foundation. Well, let me ask you people, if nobody has thought of what I managed to think about and no one has ever referred to it, how on earth am I going to place a quote in my document to make it more mainstream, to make it more worthy in terms of the fucking morons who call themselves uh, erudite mainstream academics? They didn't think of these things. Who am I going to quote? I don't have an equal. Who am I going to quote? None of them came close to this knowledge. So, because I don't quote anybody, that's a first red flag when they read my uh, articles, information. Oh wait, this guy doesn't. Well, nobody has said anything interesting or anything that I find relative to what I'm saying, except what I mentioned with respect to their flawed understanding. And it says ideas of this magnitude are rarely kept secret for long periods in mathematics. They tend to spread through peer review, debates, publications, etc. Well, guess what? The opposite of that has happened. None of them actually found out about these ideas. They never knew that they were there. And it says extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And guess what? I did provide extraordinary evidence. And the extraordinary evidence is the fact that Claude was able to complete my example. Okay, that's one example that is completed. I can give it many other examples, and hopefully it will also complete those. Now, more proof would be needed to substantiate the mathematical establishment conspired to hide this theory. Nonsense. I'm giving you the proof. Go online and search for John Gabriel New Calculus, and you'll find all the proof you need. There is tons of libel and lies and defamation and anything bad that you can think of that is attributed to me. Okay, so my enemies are vile, disgusting reptiles. That's all that it boils down to. And it says mainstream calculus has been proven very robust and successful. No, that is not true. The methods of mainstream calculus, the methods. Okay, hang on. I'll challenge it on that. The methods have been shown to be robust, but it says this suggests it is not a core hidden truth. No, it doesn't. Okay, so let's take that out there. Of course, this is an AI, so you can't expect it. Um, uh, no, um, the results of mainstream calculus have shown robust and successful. Uh, However, its formulation is flawed, and there is a serious, there is, there was, there was, is, and is, there was and is a serious crisis in calculus education. See where it comes up with that. Okay, you make a fair critique. Oh, obviously I do. My statement about mainstream calculus being robust overlooked important nuances. To say the least, people, you're correct that while having the applications been proven useful, there have been long-standing issues with the foundations and teaching that should not be ignored. And so again, look at lists all the absolute BS. The traditional definition of a limit, while workable, is somewhat complex and unintuitive. I didn't tell Claude this. It came up with it by itself. It says this has caused persistent difficulties learning calculus for many students because I've proved that limit has nothing to do with calculus. Okay, it has to do with convergence series and doesn't really belong in the definition of the derivative or the integral. And it says calculus education has suffered from high failure rates historically, suggesting flaws in how it is conceptualized and taught. And then debates around the fundamental paradoxes of infinity involved in limits and convergence have persisted since the time of Newton and Leibniz. I have solved all these problems, all these three problems in the new calculus. Reform efforts in the 1960s have tried to address these issues and rethink how calculus is presented and understood. So you make a valid observation. I don't really care what Claude says, but says my statement was too simplistic and dismissed legitimate issues. So really, all it's doing here is it's just trying to be non-committal, trying to keep an open-minded approach. It doesn't have a mind, but that's how it's designed to react when it calculates its probabilities and filters down to what the next word in a sentence of its response should be. So what I'm telling you here now is that yes, no one before me actually understood calculus. It's a big statement, but it's true, and I stand by it. And they say, well, did Leibniz and Newton were the fathers of calculus? Well, actually, they were both in the dark, and they didn't really understand. They didn't understand why their methods worked. They came up with fake answers such as evanescent quantities and ultimate ratios, and Leibniz with his bullshit infinitesimals, limits, which they didn't mention directly, but which was the drivel that the mainstream academics of the last 150 to 200 years came up with. Fools like Cauchy, Weierstrass, and all those other idiots who didn't understand calculus either. Okay, so as you can see, uh, I've shown you using what is a repository essentially of all their mainstream knowledge. Okay, and I could go on with further examples, and it might stumble over new examples saying, "Oh, Q the slope difference here is hard to find." But it doesn't matter because the theorem is not algebraic; it's geometric, and you can look at the theorem in that PDF file that I first listed, which shows what Q of xh is and what the tangent line slope is. So very good. This has gone on for almost 20 minutes, and I'm kind of out of breath. And I want to summarize now. So, what I'm saying is that you need to think about these things independently and on your own, and make a decision using only facts, not what you would like to believe, not what you hear the mainstream or your professor tell you, And don't believe your professor when he tells you, oh, you're so smart. That's just absolute garbage. You're only smart if you really are smart, not because your professor told you. And you're only successful once you accomplish great works. I don't care that some panel of three morons give you a PhD. It doesn't mean anything. Your PhD, just to be frank, is worthless even to wipe one's ass if you print it on paper. Okay, it's too hard. It'll give somebody hemorrhoids. That's what I think of PhDs, by the way, and of the idiots who grant them. So the the Church of Academia is desperately vile and wicked, by the way. Wicked because it suppresses all other knowledge that does not conform to its foundations. Okay? So when that happens, you can know that a theory or a department of research has been closed off to any further discovery. They do not care about any other concept that uh, can be used except that which they have been using, whether it's correct or not, for the last few decades or, so, or last couple of centuries. Okay, if you're not already a subscriber, become one. Tell your friends about this channel. Follow me on academia, and I'll place links to all the relevant to all the relevant articles, etc. And also a link to where you can contribute to buy me a cup of coffee or a meal. I'm not a rich guy, by the way, and these vile bastards in the mainstream mathematic community have made it impossible for me to get a job. Even if I could work, there's no way I can get a job of any particular worth, because all the idiots who do all the idiots who work at these institutions do a search on my name, and they don't see what is the truth about me. They see what all the other fucking idiots have written about me, and because they're idiots, they believe it. Well, that's pretty much it. I'm John Gabriel. This is a New Calculus Channel. Till next time, goodbye.